Vigil, Ante, and the Vigilante Antics by BelleAmant. Read by Oakshot 5. Chapter 6. A Detective's Discovery. Now Master Tsukauchi has dealt with a lot of weird things in his life. Finding out that he was a human lie detector? Okay, he could handle that. Arresting a major villain whose power was turning into a literal tree? Not bad, he just had to get help unearthing the guy's roots. Even finding out about All Might's transferable quirk and true form, Tsukauchi could deal with it easily. Something weird that he's not dealing with easily? The Vigilante duo. They've been running around for nearly 2 years now. 2 years! And yet nobody has caught them yet. Admittedly, nobody even had a chance, and the Vigilantes already had a year under the belt of sneaking around, stopping criminals and minor villains before sending them over to the nearest police department, usually in Tsukauchi's area. Dozens of petty crimes, and even some that aren't so small, have been stopped by the duo. And yet, despite their frequent outings, there's not much information on them. Tsukauchi sighs, staring at the file. Only one, because there's not enough to be worth separating the men. Tired black eyes skim over the papers once more, as if that will help him find more answers. The Vigilante duo. Names: Vigil and Ante. Quirks: unknown. Reports mention that Vigil is agile, perhaps a minor speed or agility quirk. Ante doesn't fight much, so he likely has a defensive quirk. Perhaps he has an intelligence quirk, or a sight-reducing quirk. Information: Vigil and Ante have been on the streets, picking off minor criminals and small-time villains and subduing them before either 1. Getting a witness to call the cops to pick up the apprehended people, or 2. Dropping the criminals off at the nearest police station or on a hero's patrol route. Asterix. Not much is known about these two, or their looks. The only thing that seems to be confirmed about the duo is that Vigil wears nearly all green, Ante wears mostly black and purple, and that they take a small sum of money from criminals if it is in the criminal's wallet. Their first near capture was due to Ingenium finding them on his patrol. No notable injuries remained, although he could not remember what the men looked like except for hints of green, black, and purple. This implies that the duo may have support gear that messes with their witnesses, or one of them has a sight-reducing quirk as mentioned previously. Not much more is known on these two, except for what criminals and villains they have apprehended, and if that is even accurate is unclear. Asterix. We are unsure as to how Vigil and Ante know the exact patrol routes of heroes, as the heroes have promised that they vary their routes at random. This, too, might be quirk-related. Tsukauchi rubs at his eyes, flipping to the next paper despite already knowing its contents. After the first page, it's nothing but lists of names, either those who have been arrested for their acts thanks to the duo, or those who have been saved by the two men. Occasionally, there's a comment underneath, a brief description of what had happened, and any insight the person tried to give. None of it is useful, not really. Not when the Vigilantes don't keep a pattern, when they go to different cities at random to throw the cops and heroes off of their tracks, when they're elusive and nobody can even tell what they look like. It's like they're toying with everyone, staying one step ahead at all times. They've managed to keep in the lead for almost 2 years now, and Tsukauchi wonders if they make it to the imaginary finish line without stumbling. He wonders if the Vigilantes have a finish line in mind, or if they continue their actions until they're too old to go on. He doesn't even know how long that would take. It's not like anyone can remember an age either. Tsukauchi glares at the file, then shoves it to the edge of his desk. He can focus on it later. A knock on the door. Tsukauchi straightens up, making sure he's still presentable. He is. "Come in," Tsukauchi says, and the door opens. A familiar head of blonde hair pokes through, followed by long limbs compressed of sharp angles. "Good evening, Naomasa," his old friend greets. "Mind if I join you for a bit?" Tsukauchi smiles at the hero. "I don't mind at all, Toshinori. Come in, sit down. How are you feeling?" "As perfect as one can be, if their entire left side is nothing but a scar." Toshinori tries to joke, but it falls flat. The skinny man sinks into one of the spare chairs opposite Tsukauchi's own spot, his smile more like a grimace. "It feels like that fight was just yesterday," Tsukauchi admits, hands wrapping around his coffee mug. "But it's been 2 years, hasn't it?" "Just about," Toshinori agrees. "And yet it still causes me trouble every day." "As it would, considering you no longer have a stomach," Tsukauchi pants out, and the hero laughs for a moment. The joyful sound is cut off by the man coughing out blood. Tsukauchi hands over his box of tissues, allowing his friend to clean himself up. "Sorry," Toshinori apologizes needlessly. "It's not something to apologize over." Tsukachi responds without hesitation. Now, as much as I enjoy your company, I do have to ask, is there something you needed? You never visit just for pleasure, you're always trying to help, even though you're supposed to take it easy now. Toshinori has the sense to look guilty. Chuckling nervously, he says, Hey, who says I'm not just here to check on my good old friend? Tsukachi raises an eyebrow, black eyes locked on blue ones. Are you saying that you're only here for a friendly chat? Yes? False. Lie detector quirk, Toshinori. Tsukachi sighs, watching the man's hesitant smile drop into a frown. What is it? Toshinori sighs. It's about the vigilante duo. Tsukachi feels more alert as his eyes start back to the file at the edge of his desk. Pulling it closer, he asks, What about them? Do you have new information? I was actually wondering if you did, Toshinori admits. Nothing but more villains being added to the list, Tsukachi says, excitement disappearing as quickly as it came. Sorry, Toshinori. No, it's fine. They're not the first to be so elusive. Toshinori frowns. Although something about them feels off. Off? That's an odd way of wording it. How so? We've had problems with vigilantes before, as you know far too well. Toshinori starts, eyes locked on the closed file that Tsukachi's hands linger on. I've personally been evaded by a few that were just a bit too good at hiding in the shadows, even some that took over a decade to be found. Some, of course, disappeared from the public before they could ever be caught, but these two don't seem exactly like that. What do you mean? I'm not quite sure myself. It's more of a hunch. Do you think it's their morals? Tsukachi asks, trying to help his friend. No, they seem to be helping. They're focusing on the crime that most heroes would miss when focusing on the bigger issues. It's really rather admirable, even if it's technically criminal to do so without a license. I've seen my fair share of vigilantes who are only acting because they felt it was their moral duty. Okay, so if not their morals, what about their quirks? Toshinori frowns deeper, but he doesn't deny it. That could be it. Most vigilantes use their quirks more obviously, but maybe Vigil and Ante don't have obvious quirks. Perhaps that's what led them to vigilantism. Tsukachi theorizes. Their quirks may not be showy enough to become popular heroes, so they decided to go for a different approach. Toshinori hums an agreement. That might be it. Are you going to note that down? Tsukachi snorts, but opens the file nonetheless. Quickly, he starts a new section. Possible motivations and theories. Jotting down the idea, he says, It doesn't hurt to write it down. The two men sit in peaceful silence for a moment, taking a second to relax. When it seems that Toshinori has no plans on leaving soon, he asks, Would you like something to drink? The blonde smiles gratefully. That would be nice. Thank you. The sound of a crash cuts him off. Tsukachi is out of his seat right away, his friend moving as well. Tsukachi looks towards the source of the noise, blinking as another crash comes right outside his window. He opens it quickly, peering his head out. A villain. Of course. What else could he expect? What is it? Toshinori asks, and Tsukachi frowns. A villain. He seems to have a ground-related quirk. He's staring up the street with every stump of his foot. Tsukachi watches as the man rampages, sending the giant chunks of concrete in random directions, hitting cars and buildings without discrimination. Haven't seen him before. Outside of his door, he can hear the police racing down to meet the enemy as a woman frantically calls for a nearby hero, someone more capable of dealing with such a powerful foe. They'll just get hurt fighting him, Toshinori says as the policemen pile out of the doorway. I can help. How long did you stay in your muscle form today? Tsukachi asks, turning his eyes onto his friend. I have time. False. You used all of your hours. You're not going out there. You can't strain yourself over every single thing. But nobody else is here yet. People will get hurt now, Masa. I can't just... Another crash. But then, something else. Yelling. Hey, tough guy! A voice shouts through the air, and it doesn't sound quite human. Tsukachi looks back to the scene, and blinks in surprise. The policemen are gone, all of them having ran once they'd nearly been hit. Tsukachi can't see any hint of them. They must be cowering somewhere. Or are buried under nearby rubble. Now, a lone figure stands opposite the villain, gloved hands gripping a silver staff, the person covered in green with hints of black. Vigil. Why don't you pick on someone your own level, huh? Vigil taunts loudly, taking another step. The ground can't exactly fight back. Why not try trying with someone who can? The villain laughs. Fight back? Why don't you try to fight back with this? The villain stomps, then throws the new piece of concrete with ease. Vigil simply sidesteps the attack. From the way his shoulders seem to shake, Tsukachi thinks the man is laughing. That's all you've got? What a shame! Vigil shouts, then jumps over another chunk of the street that flies his way. Can't even land a single hit! Why is he taunting him so much? Toshinori mutters. The villain is only becoming more hostile, and his attacks are becoming bigger. He won't be able to dodge every... As if on cue, Vigil gets knocked in the shoulder by a piece. Hit. The shaking grows, and Tsukachi can hear the broken up laughter, deep and almost demonic. He must be wearing a voice modifier. Tsukachi realizes, and races to write that down, clutching the paper and pencil tightly as he continues to watch the scene. And then Vigil darts forward, dodging with ease as he comes closer and closer to the villain. That's when Tsukachi gets it. He wanted to get hit. Tsukachi says. What? Why would he? It's self-defense. It makes sense. It makes so much sense. He wanted to get hit by the villain, because then attacking back is legal. And look. Tsukachi redirects Toshinori's attention back to where the vigilante fights the villain, knocking the latter onto the ground with his staff. He's not using his quirk. But that puts him at a disadvantage, Toshinori argues. Against the villain, yes, but if he gets caught, which we won't. A new voice joins in from behind the two onlookers, and Tsukachi tenses. Both look behind them, surprised when they come face to face with a figure covered in black, a purple mask and odd black object hiding most of his face. Do you really think he can get caught? Ante asks them, as he stands in Tsukachi's room like it's nothing unusual, like he didn't have to pass multiple floors with the cops and other workers. How did you... The world goes blank. The last thing Tsukachi remembering is Toshinori trying to grab at Ante. When the world comes back, Tsukachi can't remember much. All he knows is that Vigil appeared, he took down the villain, and then he was gone. No sign of Ante, no idea what happened during the fight, and no clue what either May looked like. But for some reason, his notes said that Vigil was a voice modifier. Something feels weird about this too, and Tsukachi will find out what it is. That was chapter 6 of Vigil, Ante, and the Vigilante Antics. Tsukachi found out about them, and we get to see his perspective. And Hitoshi is using his quirks, so people can't remember them. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this chapter, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!